Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a watercolor painting of a witch, and I'll be using my Graham watercolors. This is the set that Steve Mitchell created with Graham, and you can purchase it at What Paint. This set has 10 colors: Azo Yellow, Indian Yellow, Scarlet Pearl, Quinacridone Rose, Dioxazine Purple, Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Green, Azo Green, Transparent Red, Iron Oxide, and Neutral Tint. And I am starting out by painting the hat, and to create this color I mixed the transparent red iron oxide with some of the neutral tint, which kind of cooled it and gave it more of like a cooler brown tone. And in this video, I cut out a bunch of parts, but I did keep it in real time just so that you could see the speed that I paint in and how I paint. I typically start in like a corner and move out from there, spreading the watercolor into the particular section. One thing with watercolor that you should always keep in mind is that when you paint the color down, like lay it down, it will dry a bit later than what you see when it's wet. So as you can see, the first part of brown has dried up a bit. And now I'm painting the face. So to create the skin tone, I actually mixed a bunch of colors together. I did some transparent red, Quinacridone Rose, Dioxazine Purple. I used the Ultramarine Blue. I used the Indian Yellow. I kind of had no idea where to start, so I just mixed colors until I got the tone that I was looking for, and then I also added a bunch of water to lighten it up. So next time I'll probably just go straight in with the Dioxazine Purple and the Indian Yellow as the starting point and see where that gets me. But yeah, I haven't really figured out how to get like a skin color right off the bat. Most of the colors that I came up with right away ended up being either too pink, too purple, too blue, so I have a little playing around to do with that still. And I'm doing the Indian Yellow to paint in the leaves, and then I used a little bit of Scarlet Pearl for the second leaf I did. And I'm using the neutral tint for the holes in the hat. And one thing I'm wishing I would have done, because I didn't do this, was to highlight one of the edges with white to make it stand out and pop even more, but I forgot, so I didn't do that in this video. And now I'm just using the Scarlet Pearl with a little bit of Quinacridone Rose for the third leaf in the hat. I was trying to go for like a autumn witch, like maybe a nice, cute autumn witch girl. As my last painting for October, I was trying to do a lot of Halloween themes this month. And I'm using the Indian yellow for the turtleneck of her shirt, mixed in with a little bit of Scarlet Pearl. And this is actually the first time I've painted a face, so it's probably not the best, but it's better than what I've previously done, which is nothing. So I'm giving myself a good job on this one. And now for her hair, I'm using neutral tint with nothing else added to it. I really like this color. I like using neutral tint as opposed to like a straight black. I think it makes it more earthy or natural, like you would find it in nature. And initially when I got this set and put it in my palette, I was planning on buying 4 additional colors for my palette set, but I don't know what colors to get because I honestly haven't had like an urge to reach for or need any other colors. So at this point I don't know what I should do, if I should just get something random, but so far this set I've been really happy with the color selection. I would say the only time I did wish I had a different color would be in this painting for the face, but that was mainly because I don't know how to make skin tones yet because I never paint skin tones. But I'm guessing this set would probably be pretty good. I'm trying to think of what would help aside from just getting a skin color paint, but chances are that probably wouldn't be light fast, because typically from what I've noticed, especially when you look at lighter skin tones, the pinks usually aren't light fast that I've at least tested. They usually turn into a pretty pure white when left out in the sun. But I don't know, I'll have to give that some thought on if I should get 4 more colors for this set, because I do really like the paint. I like that they stay moist. It's probably not the best word to use, but they don't get super hard when you let them sit. Like my cellular watercolors are really hard to the touch. These ones, these stay soft. Like if you put your finger in it, paint will be on your finger, which is nice because I feel like that's probably better for your brushes because you're not having to work them so hard to get the paint out of the pans. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. And too, these watercolors, I let them sit out for about a month without any use because I was focusing so much time on my Turner Design gouache, just playing around with that and using it up and trying to figure out gouache, that these paints basically sat for a month without being used. So yeah, I really like how they stay soft like that. But I have noticed that I am getting through the pans that I've filled a lot quicker than my cellular watercolors, and that's probably because they're not getting hard like my cellular watercolors are, but that's okay because you buy paint to use them. And I've honestly have never gone through a set of watercolors. I've had my cellular set for like, I don't know, I would say probably like 5 to 7 years, and I use that one. That's usually my main watercolor set, and I've only refilled a couple pans. So yeah, it's gotten some mileage on it. And here I'm kind of showing you how I do glazing. So I generally paint in one layer, and then to make that layer darker as I see fit, I start painting the same color over it once it's completely dry. And I usually get braver with my color too. I use less water to darken the area quite a bit more. And then what I did there was I removed the paint that was in my brush and just kind of grabbed some of the water to slightly fade it out, because I wanted the hair really dark by her hat and then fade it out going down to the bottom. So each time I'm dipping my brush, I'm taking a little bit more paint off of my brush and adding more water. You can really see that here. And then when it dries, it'll have a really nice gradient or ombre effect. And you'll be able to see that effect on this section a lot easier because it's such a big area. But I'm starting out with a really dark neutral tint, and I'm spreading it out with my brush fully loaded with a little bit of water, but mostly it's paint. And then I get that dark area to how I want it, and then I dip my brush into the water and give it like a little swoosh to get rid of that paint, and then I bring the paint down that I just painted. And then I do that same step again, so now it should just be mostly water on my brush, and then I bring that section down even further, and that's how I get that gradient ombre effect. And now I'm putting on a second layer of the brown for underneath her hat, so this part wouldn't necessarily be seeing a lot of the sunlight. So I'm going in with a second layer to make it quite a bit darker than the top part of her hat. So this is the part that's in shadow. This is also something too that I've I don't necessarily think about all the time, but I'm trying to start thinking about is where that sunlight is gonna hit and where that shadow is gonna be, because I think that would add even more dimension and interest to my paintings, and then they're not so flat. So I end up really darkening up her neck because her chin would be casting a shadow on her neck. I'm adding shadow to the area by her hairline and where her hair would fall because a shadow would be cast from that. But when I was painting, I didn't even think about that her hat would actually be casting a shadow on her face. So I could have gone full tilt with maybe like the top portion of her head being in shadow and then the bottom portion being in sunlight. That may have made the piece a little bit more interesting and added a little bit more dimension and made it feel a little bit more real. So that's something I can keep in mind for next time. So that's another thing too with painting. I feel like every time you paint, you learn something. Or if you forgot something, you remember it. And it's just about like trial and error. I don't feel like any painting is ever going to be completely perfect, especially for you as an artist. You'll probably always find flaws in your own artwork, and that it's normal and it's okay. But those flaws that you find, you can learn from them and change what you're painting next time so that you become better and improve with every painting that you do. So that's my mindset, at least. And now I'm taking that neutral tint and I'm painting the like belt around her hat. I don't know what they would call that area. It's just decoration for me, adding a little bit more interest. And I'm going in with the neutral tint transparent red iron oxide mixture that I made. And I'm creating a second layer on her clothing just to darken that up a bit. Now I'm going in with my Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils. I typically do this after I'm done painting with the watercolor as my finishing touches to my painting. I'll use it to add in some small little details, adding a little bit more texture to certain areas, maybe adding in some more shadow. Mainly I like the texture that it adds to my watercolor paintings. And I am always careful to do this as a final step because these will stay light fast as long as they are not done before you watercolor, because I think the theory is that you don't want to mix water with these because it'll lose some of that light fast nature that it has. So that's how I use it, and I haven't had any issues so far. But right here, this is where I'm like adding a little bit darker of a shadow. And then adding in a little bit of texture to her cheek. So I'm making her cheeks rosy, giving her a little bit more life. And I'm pretty careful with using a light hand with these as well. So these are pretty much my favorite colored pencils, and I believe the difference between these and Prismacolors is that these are oil-based, and then I think the Prismacolors are wax-based. I'm not for certain, but I do prefer these polychromos ones over the Prismacolor ones, and that just might be that I'm just used to using them, so it's less work for me to use them than it is for Prismacolors for me. And then another thing that I like to do is I like outlining my paintings. I used to do this step with watercolor, but I found that doing it with a colored pencil goes a lot faster and it still achieves that look that I'm going for. But sometimes I still do my outlining with like a darker shade of the watercolor. And then I also, every time I draw a line or a segment, I rotate the pencil a little bit because I really want to ensure that I'm working with like a sharp edge and not the flat edge. So if you see me making like a weird hand movement, that's what I'm doing. And I do that with my watercolor brushes too, or like my gouache brushes or any sort of brush that I'm doing. I'm doing like a slight rotation so that I'm using like the cleanest tip so I can get really detailed into whatever area I'm painting. And now I'm going in with the with outlining and adding in the details to the feathers. And initially I was going to do the color of the feathers because that's one thing that I really like doing, is using the same or similar color to the color that I'm drawing around. But again, I ended up changing my mind, so I end up going over this. But I just wanted to show you my process and where, you know, I change my mind. I try something, I don't really like it, and hopefully I can go over it and do it differently. And in this case, I was able to. So now is where I decide to go in with that darker color. Also, another thing I've done is used gouache, so I could have gone in and done this step with gouache and made it stand out a little bit better using that same red or yellow or golden color. But I was honestly too lazy to go and pull out my gouache colors. So I just wanted to keep it simple and use this same pencil color that I had been using for all of my other outlining, which I can't think of offhand what color I'm using, but it's like this really dark gray, like a warmish gray, like it's a mixture of like brown and black, like a brown black gray color. But that's the pencil I use the most. I've already replaced it probably like 3 times. And I don't know, this color, it just makes the whole section like kind of stand out more, to me at least. So I'm happy I changed the color. And it kind of matches her turtleneck too now with the feathers, because in the turtleneck I used the same pencil. And then I'm using a black pencil to add some lines to her hair to make it have a little bit more movement. And now I'm doing finishing touches with a white Uniball pen. So I added the little highlight in her eye. I'm going into her hair where it's super straight. It's like cut super straight, and I wanted to break that up a little bit by adding some breaks. So that's what I'm doing now. And again, deepening that eye highlight a little bit more, and then adding some highlights to her mouth. So in total, I think this painting took me about, I want to say 2 hours to do. I cut out a bunch of stuff that didn't really show a lot. It was just a lot of my process still that you already see here. And I took out a bunch of those like blurry moments that I have with my camera, because that's just not helpful at all. So that is my process, and I hope you liked watching this video. I hoped it helped you out. You learned something, and thanks for watching. Let me know what I should paint next. Bye!